Welcome into In the Trenches. Myself, Tanner Kern, joined alongside former CFL defensive lineman Maxx Forde. Max, eventful week coming up in the NFL. We got playoff implications all over the place, and we're going to break down our biggest mismatches in our DFS value defenses for the week. But one big thing happened in the NFL last night, besides the 49ers losing once again, shocking fashion. I didn't think that was going to happen. But Devondre Campbell walking off on his team last night. A lot of people were going nuts over it today. My take was this man is making so much money. He's made over $30 million in his career. You're being a selfish teammate. You're being selfish to the fan. Big problem. He was cut, and that was just justifiable in terms of what the 49ers did.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, there's no space for that on a team. Like, there's only one scenario that I can really sit here and say, like, that would be understandable. And that would be if he still felt that he wasn't healthy enough to play and they tried to force him to play. That's one thing. But, like, the NFLPA is set up in a way where those kind of things don't really happen anymore. I know that's a thing that probably in the past you'd see a lot of. And if that was what happened, I'm sure we would have heard it from his side by now. So kind of doubt that is going to be what happened behind the scenes there. And any other excuse that there is for that, to me, doesn't hold any water. Like, if you're out there, you're physically able to play, you do what your team needs. Football's the ultimate team sport. People say that all the time. And to me, it's the truest thing there is. Like, you play football, especially playing the position you played. I played in high school a little bit, but playing on the offensive line, like, there's no glory in that spot. Like, you only get called out when you get caught holding, you false start, stuff like that. Very rarely do offensive line get the love on the broadcast or in public. And it's kind of an extension of what football is really about. Obviously, like, there is a little bit of glory with some of those other positions, but still, it's a team game and guys sacrificing for the guy next to him. And when you see a guy that 52 other guys plus coaches, practice squad, all that, they're all counting on you, and you just decide to not go in, that's disappointing.
Yeah, it seemed like Dre Greenlaw ultimately getting hurt. They wanted him to go back in the game, and he was like, well, you guys benched me before, so I'm not going in now. It was just a very interesting situation, not one that I would expect of a professional football player. You're pulling like diva wide receiver attitude there. You just can't do it. Especially, you're not brought in there to be the guy. You're brought in there to be a guy that leads in the locker room. You're not better than Dre Greenlaw. No world are you better than him. You know, like, that is the heart and soul of the 49ers defense. Yeah. So the fact that you got angry over that, it's disappointing too from a fan perspective. We saw, I don't know if you saw the clip, Max, going around online, the 49ers fans fighting each other in the stands last night. It's gotten so bad for San Francisco fans, they've turned on each other now.
Yeah, I didn't see that, but yeah, not too surprising, I guess. It was a crazy game last night. Just from I kept thinking it's like one touchdown is going to win this game, and then it was no touchdown. So I was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Brock Purdy didn't want to throw that touchdown at the pick at the end of the game. But interesting one there. But we got some games to talk about now. First off, weekly, we start with the biggest mismatch. Max, for you this week, this is the Baltimore Ravens defense going up against the New York Giants offense. Looks like Tommy DeVito will be under center, one of the best agents in the game, but he is not one of the best quarterbacks in the game. So Giants offensive line's been really bad. I can say that. They have not protected anyone who's in there. Really haven't given any quarterback a shot. Baltimore is a little shaky in the secondary, Max, but you're leaning on them this week to get a big stop against the New York Giants. Why?
Yeah, I think on this slate, like you talked about there, the Giants offensive line has struggled. We saw Drew Lock on his back quite a bit over the last couple of weeks in the national spotlight on that Thanksgiving game. Every time it felt like he dropped back, he was on his back against the Cowboys. And now you get the Ravens, who, like you said, the secondary struggled. So in part, that gives you a little bit of pause there. But when we're talking about the trenches there, they've got Madubuike, they've got Kyle Van Noy, he's had a real good career resurgence here the last couple of years. Had put up his best sack numbers of his career 10 years in, which is kind of, you don't see that. They've got Adafi Owe. They've got guys that can pressure the quarterback, and when you've got an offensive line that's not able to protect them, if those guys can get to the quarterback, if they can get to DeVito, who's already, like we talked about, he's been second or third string depending on who you ask throughout the year. If you can get to that guy, I don't think the secondary has to worry about a whole lot. So yeah, they don't have to guard a lot of grass when the quarterback's on his back.
Yeah. I mean, at least thinking back to the last Giants game that I fully watched with Tommy DeVito, it's never looks good. Even with Drew Lock, it never looks good. It does not matter. Daniel Jones, it didn't look good. So I do like this play. My one fear would be that Ravens secondary. Can the pass rush get home? I think from a running standpoint, they're going to force the Giants into third and long situations, second and long situations where they have to throw the ball. That's probably going to end better for the Ravens here. So I do like the play. But Max, would you include this on a DFS lineup for $3,900?
Because of that secondary, like I said, like I still think if the pass rush hits home, we don't have to worry about it. But it's enough of an if that I probably don't want to spend up for it. It's a pretty expensive price on this slate, and I think you can find better plays down the slate a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of those plays down the slate, we got our budget ones here. Jacksonville defense going against the New York Jets offense for $2,700. Max, this is an interesting one out of you because the New York Jets have looked better and better. It seems like Aaron Rodgers is starting to play for his job a little bit, and he knows that his time is coming and he's got to start playing well. That not necessarily resulting in wins for New York, but they are playing better on offense. So why are you leaning towards a Jacksonville team that's pretty deflated right now?
Yeah, I think Jacksonville, like last week, going into last week, it kind of felt like a chance for them to really give in and call it a season. Then they came out and won their game, a game that, again, it was against another poor team, but right now the Jets are also another poor team. And we've talked about their offensive line on the show throughout the season as well as being one that has the talent to be a better offensive line. Like, yes, some of those guys are longer in the tooth, but you expected them to be a pretty, at least a league average unit as the floor, and they haven't been that. And so the Jags, I don't think necessarily have maybe that elite defensive line, but I do think it still looks like they're motivated. They're still playing with like a little bit of energy that you don't normally see out of a 3-loss team. And last week they were a team that won with 1 touchdown. Talking about those 1-0 touchdown wins, they had one of those. So I think the defense does have a bit of a chance here against a Jets team that is flailing a little bit, even if they are starting to pick it up. The Jets just, the talent's there. The output's not. They haven't put it together, and I think this is one that you can kind of pick and try to play for 2,700 there.
Yeah, I totally agree. Look at the Jets offensive line right now. Elijah Vera Tucker and Morgan Moses are both questionable on the right side of that offensive line there. And New York, similar to the New York Giants, like the Jets are similar to Giants in the sense of they don't protect the quarterback. Aaron Rodgers, while we have not been high on Rodgers this season, he really has not had a ton of time to throw the football. He's been under pressure a lot, and that goes back to this offensive line. There's a lot of issues with it. Max, Giants and Jets, not good, obviously, but looking at the Jets win total was set at some places had it 10.5 going into the season. They're not close to that. Yeah. But were you one of those people that thought the Jets were going to be a playoff team this year or no?
I did. I'll take the L on that one. I'm not sure if I would have put over on 10.5, but I mean, you look at what they were able to do with quarterbacks that are perceived to be a lot worse than Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Rodgers coming off an Achilles, obviously, and he's 40 and all these other things, but he's still Aaron Rodgers. Like the last healthy season we saw him put on the field before this season, he was still playing at a level where he should have elevated this roster. And I did think that at worst that they're fighting for a wild card. They're not there, but yeah, they struggled all year long, and it just never seems to click. It's weird that we're sitting here talking about Zach Wilson having like the same amount of wins as Aaron Rodgers, mostly the same roster. Well, shoot, he didn't have Devontae Adams, he didn't have Tyron Smith and all that. So I don't know. It feels a little bit like the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I mean, the Jets have just not performed up to their standard this year, up to the standard that the public sets. I mean, the Jets are the Jets. We haven't seen them be good in a long time, but the public always puts them up on a pedestal, and we'll see if Aaron Rodgers is back there playing quarterback next year. A quarterback that has resurged his career a little bit here, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Russell Wilson. Now we're looking at the flip side here with the Pittsburgh Steelers defense and the Philadelphia Eagles offense. You're getting the Steelers for $2,800 right now. Really comes down to can they shut down Saquon Barkley. But Max, before we even talk about this game, did you ever play with the diva wide receivers? I'm not saying like an AJ Brown, obviously, but that diva approach in the locker room. How did you deal with that, or how did you see your teammates deal with that when you were in college and then CFL?
Yeah, like there's when you ask, like there's a specific guy that I play with. I'm not gonna say where, just because I don't want to get into all that. But um, I don't know, just sometimes it bothers you when like you can see like a little bit of a different leash. Like I get it, like the Jimmy Johnson saying of like there's different rules for everybody. Like how he would treat Troy Aikman differently than he's treating Michael Irvin, than he treats the last guy on the roster. And I get that. Like from a talent perspective, not everybody matters the same. As much as we want it to be completely quote unquote fair, it's not the same. But I mean, when you're one of when you're one of the better players at a different position and you get a little bit noisy, like some of those wide receivers get sometimes, you don't feel like you have the same kind of leash as they do. And I don't know. It's just I think for me, the biggest thing is if you're producing on the field, I can put up with a lot of BS. It's when you start to do all that stuff and it starts to either one, take away from your ability to be on the field, or two, takes away from your production when you are on the field. That's when I start to have problems with it.
Yeah, it's not like A.J. Brown hasn't performed. He's just been more angry with Jalen Hurts either missing reads or missing throws, or like A.J. Brown doesn't have a lot of catches this year, has a lot of yards though, so he is getting explosive plays down the field here. I don't see the Philadelphia Eagles offense putting it together in this game from a passing standpoint. I think if anyone beats the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are a 5-point underdog in this game, it's going to be Saquon Barkley running the football. So Max, why do you like this play? And then also, do you think the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is going to have the dudes up front to shut down that run game?
I absolutely do think. Sorry, answer the questions backwards, but I do think they have the dogs up front, man. Like I really love that Pittsburgh Steelers defensive line. And going back to why I love the play is this defense is a defense that we've seen do it, especially when they were starting Justin Fields early in the season, but win games without much help from the offense. And when you have a defense like that and you get them a little bit of help from the offense, we talked about Russell Wilson's mini resurgence there. Things can really come together nicely. And this defense, we've talked about in the past weeks, like offenses that I want to target anytime they're under $3,000. Like I'm going to want to play them. It's kind of the inverse of that, but anytime I see the Pittsburgh defense under $3,000, I probably want to play them. It's just to me, it's one of the top units in the league. You've got defensive player of the year candidate, perennial defensive player of the year candidate, and TJ Watt. To me, probably one of the most consistent defenders we have in the league right now as far as performing at an elite level. You've got Cameron Hayward there still. You've got just so many, like as long as I can remember, like the last 20, 30 years, they've had dudes up front on that defense. And it's a defense that I really believe in. And I think in this matchup, I think they can get it done against an offense that Philadelphia does have a ceiling, but they're not consistently hitting that ceiling. So I think, it's definitely playable at that $2,800 price. And talking about giving 5 points, I might take the Steelers on the money line, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. 5 points is a lot in this game. There's a route for the Eagles to get there, but when you look at the Steelers, they don't have George Pickens playing in this football game. That's going to impact them. But overall, I mean, Pittsburgh's been really good defensively. I think it's going to be a low-scoring defensive battle. I don't think Saquon has the 100-yard game. I don't think A.J. Brown goes over 80 receiving yards, especially when you're setting Jalen Hurts' total at like 180 in this football game. So it's a lot to ask A.J. Brown to go over that number when Jalen Hurts is only expected to throw for 180 yards.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
My guy, Baker Mayfield. You're not too high on him this week. $2,900. You're going with the LA Chargers here. Looking at the Chargers in this spot, they have played really well at times. They've also looked like they don't know what they're doing at times, in my opinion. But you got a Tampa Bay offense right now that is one of the most inconsistent in the league. At the peak, they were really good. Their offensive line's gelling. They're able to run the football. But they've also taken a lot of steps back with Baker Mayfield throwing interceptions. It's hard for me to give a read on this game because you just don't know what kind of Tampa Bay you're going to get, Max. So why are you high on the Chargers here?
Well, first thing, again, it's not necessarily about the players. It's about the logistics here. But you got Tampa Bay going across the country. I know that 3-hour time zone, coast-to-coast travel sometimes can get you. And, going across the country sometimes. You get those games where you're a little bit jet lagged and whatever. Like when I was playing, I never really believed in it, but as a spectator, definitely pay attention to those things a little bit more. And I think you got that. you've got a Chargers defense that they've really relied on all year. They have Justin Herbert, who is a very good quarterback, but they don't really play that kind of football where you're leaning on your quarterback. They like to lean on that run game, lean on the defense a little bit, and it's led them to a very successful season so far because they have a defense that's capable of doing that. And like you talked about there, you got the Buccaneers who have been up and down. They've had their highs, their highs have been pretty high this year. Shoot, only team that's beat the Lions. And then, they've also had some lows where struggling against teams in the NFC South, which isn't necessarily filled with juggernauts there. So I think they might be the king of the NFC South teams, but that's not saying a whole lot right now. But I just think this Chargers defense can get after them. And also, you got a pass rush rotation. We're talking about the trenches, obviously, that has some guys that are a little bit longer in the tooth, but guys that are still, I think, elite at what they do. With you got Khalil Mack there, Joey Bosa, and you got Tui Pelotu kind of mixing in the three of them. You get them maybe all on the field in a pass rush situation. It gets a little bit fun there. And Morgan Fox is another guy that I enjoy watching. He's kind of like a glue guy that's maybe not the most heralded guy, but he gets things done too.
Yeah, and my biggest thing coming into this game is just the Buccaneers injuries. That would be another reason to lean over towards to the Chargers here too. When you look at the Buccaneers up front, Tristan Wirfs questionable, Ben Bredesen questionable. Graham Barton at center has been snapping the ball all over the place. He looked better last week against the Raiders than he did the week before, but hasn't necessarily been super consistent player there. Then you got Bucky Irving questionable, Mike Evans questionable, and these aren't questionables like, these guys were just marking them questionable on the injury report. Like these are questionable, like serious. Hey, these guys are dealing with some stuff. We'll see if they're on the field or not. I do think the Chargers win this game. I think it's a pretty convincing win for the Chargers, and then the Buccaneers can get back on track in their final 3 games against teams that are more beatable in the Cowboys and the Saints and the Panthers. So good play, Max. I like it.
Yeah, all those questionable tags make me miss the old probable tag.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's you never know what you're going to get with the questionable tags. Now, most times questionable means you're playing, but I feel like for this Buccaneers team, at least, I don't even know. It's hard to say with all the injuries they've had.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you got your 3 plays here, Max. LA, Pittsburgh, and Jacksonville. If you got to pick one, what is that one going to be?
I feel like I'm not supposed to say this one, but I got to go with Pittsburgh. I know they're playing probably the toughest offense out of the 3, but I just really like that defense. I like playing premium defenses, even if it's against a premium offense. And so for me, I got to go with Pittsburgh because I think even in a matchup of a premium offense versus premium defense, you can get that high-end upside with that defense. Like there is a range of outcomes that includes them just dominating the offense. I think even if it goes well for Philadelphia offensively, I don't think the downside is as low as the downside isn't as low as the upside is high for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense in this one to me, and I just like that upside. I think I'm going to chase it there.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I would say if I'm picking one here, I think New York can exploit Jacksonville easier than Philly can exploit Pittsburgh's defense. Like even the Steelers defense, you think back to a few weeks ago against the Cincinnati Bengals, they gave up 40-something points, but they still had sacks and interceptions, and they still scored fantasy points. So that would be my reasoning going there. The Chargers, I like the Chargers a lot. But at the same time, too, we've seen teams exploit them through the air. If Baker comes out and doesn't turn the ball over, that could be a game that goes in favor of Tampa Bay easier than I think the Philadelphia Eagles having their way against the Steelers. So I would agree with you there, Max. Looking at something you're excited for this week, what's the one game or one storyline you're looking at?
Well, I hate to be redundant here. The Battle of Pennsylvania, man. Like they used to be the same team, which is kind of fun. I went to the Hall of Fame this summer and kind of saw some of the old stuff, and seeing some of the old Steagles stuff was kind of fun. But you don't get it too often because different separate conferences play each other probably every 4 years or so, and just kind of fun to. They're both good right now, so I think that's going to be a fun one. I think I saw also, which crazy. I think Pittsburgh hasn't won in Philadelphia in like 50 or 60 years or something like that. I saw. Hopefully I'm not saying something that's untrue, but that's just that feels like an untrue stat when I saw it. And so, I think that'll be a fun one.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one. I'm also looking forward to Bills Lions, 4:25 kickoff CBS. That's going to be fun. But I'm also going to be watching the Buccaneers at that time too. So I'm going to have all the games on the television because that's going to be a fun one. Yeah, so I'm not a red zone guy. I don't know. Are you a red zone guy?
I like to, but I will say I don't get to watch as much of it with having the kid and all that kind of stuff. So like I take probably like 30 minutes of red zone here and there and call it a day. But I more so get the full games later in the day or during nap time. So
yeah, I think for me, and obviously I don't have a kid, so I probably will change it when I do have a kid. But like having four. Like I'd rather watch a YouTube TV where I can have 4 games on at once and just watch those games. Because realistically, I mean, fantasy is great. Like I'm focused on fantasy, but like I'm also focused on the games I'm betting. So like I want to watch those games full time, and then I get one on the iPad too. So it's like you got 5 games. You can see 5 games, and I mean, what's the max? 8 on at a time, right? So not even 8. Yeah, 8 games would be the max on at a time, I think. So in a 1 o'clock or a 4 o'clock window, I think you're showing 8. Like the Octabox is the most they can do on with Scott Hansen, so it's got to be 8. But yeah, I don't know. Red zone's just it's overstimulation for me. I don't know. That's a hot take.
I hear you. Like my dad said the same thing, so like I get it. Like it's not for everybody. I enjoy it personally, but I also get why people don't because it can be too much.
Yeah,
I just I like keeping tabs on everything. I probably need to get like the YouTube TV like quad box going on like you're talking about, but yeah, for me it's just kind of a way to keep tabs on where all the games are at.
Yeah, 100%. Well, guys, that was In the Trenches with myself and Max. We're not going to say we're going to be back at the normal time next week because we're going to talk about it off camera. I believe we are, but we might have Christmas stuff going on, right, Max? We're all over the place right now, the holiday season, but we will be back at some point next week, so make sure you follow the socials. We tweet the show out after, and we will have it there as well whenever we record it. So thanks for joining us, guys. Max, thanks for being here. Another show in the books, week 15, head to week 16 in a week, and we'll see you then to talk more football.